COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes to our usual ways of living. But the Department of Education remains unfazed by these challenges to fulfill the mission of Sulong Edukalidad, the rallying call for national effort to deliver quality basic education to all Filipinos, which involve aggressive reforms in the four key areas: the K-12 curriculum review and update, improving the learning environment, teachers upskilling and reskilling, and engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration to move forward together as we prepare the education system for the future. The call for Sulong Edukalidad will continue, and we have built the framework of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, or the BELCP, to put the needs of the learners at top priority. DepEd's BELCP is the major response and commitment to protect the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. The plan aims to provide opportunities to continue education even in these trying times with a BELCP in place, supported by an unprecedented number of diverse stakeholders from the academe, media, industry groups, NGOs, business and private individuals. Sulong Edukalidad will be able to sustain the aims in its reform for quality basic education. In our journey towards quality education, we have established the four pillars of aggressive reforms from the start, and we have been continuing to progress in these pillars. In improving the learning environment, we took action in the construction and rehabilitation of school buildings, ensured the availability of learning materials and equipment, and prioritized our last mile schools. The challenges of the pandemic also brought to light the urgent need to upgrade our ICT infrastructure to service the needs of education. In terms of the teachers upskilling and reskilling, we were able to establish more innovative professional standards for teachers and school heads. We have aligned the professional development of teachers with their career progression to track their development as part of the National Educators Academy of the Philippines transformation. With the launch of the Education Futures program, where we will be focusing on innovative actions and solutions to improve the state of our education, we are now more than ready to start a new journey and continue our fight for quality education for all Filipino learners. Finally, we've given high importance to the engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration. In support of this, we have convened the Philippine Forum for Accessible Quality Basic Education, or the Education Forum, which will leverage other partnerships for education quality and strengthen partnership with the Philippine Normal University as the country's national center for teacher education. The department has also been developing a professional development program for teachers and school leaders in order to equip them with the skills, materials, and data that will allow them to help their students prepare for PISA 2022. This intervention consists of the following components: online training for teachers and school leaders, development of learning materials and practice tests for students, deepening the analysis of the PISA 2018 results, and supporting school-level action research. Now that the year is about to end, our commitment to Sulong Edukalidad will continue and will be far from being gone. With a lot at stake, considering our new knowledge and experience from this year's challenges, we are equipped to face a new future. As we head on to the future where we will face many challenges and uncertainties, the department will always be the guardian of every Filipino learner's right to education.
iyong pagtutunguhan. Pangat na inaasam, di mapipigil ni numan. Maaabot lahat ng iyong inaasam. Kasipagan ng sagot, salat ka man sa kayamanan. Buksan ang pahina ng mga aklat ng karunungan. Edukasyon ating kailangan, kamamangan ating iwanan. Please! Ating lilipalin, ang himbang pamiling, ating tanawin, bagong pag-asa ay muling tatanawin. Kinabukasan pag-ibayin, pilitin mong gawin, gusto ang pagsisikap, pag-asa ay yakapin. Edukasyon ang kayamanan ng kahit ninuman, isang pangarap ang tutupad, pagsisikapan ng lahat. Gusto ang pagsisikap, kaya mo yun, kaibigan. Mabubuo isang pangarap.
Recording in progress.
Magandang umaga, naimbag abigat, marhay na aga, maayong buntag, good morning, mga ka-DepEd and partners in the basic education sector. What time is it? It's research o'clock.
Yes, gaya nga po ng sinabi ni Michael na it's research o'clock. So we want to welcome you to our research o'clock. And now we are live on DepEd Philippines Facebook page. We are also live sa ating pong DepEd YouTube channel. And of course, Michael, before we formally start, nasabi ko na yung name mo, but before we formally start, we would like to introduce ourselves first. No? Yes, partner.
Oo nga, nasa naman ba ang manners namin? So ako po, si Michael.
And I'm Anne. Kami po ay galing sa Policy Research and Development Division Planning Service. And we will be your moderators for today's research forum. So we are so grateful din po na kasama natin sila Sir Billy, si Miss Pauline, and Miss Clarissa, our Filipino sign language interpreters from the Philippine School for the Deaf, as well as, of course, our partners from Public Affairs Service Publication Division who are assisting us with this broadcasting for today's forum. So please, wag po tayong bibitaw from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. para sa ating makabuluhang talakayan for this day.
Ayan po. So, bago po tayo magsimula, ano po ba ang Research O'Clock? So, para po sa mga new to our show, ang Research O'Clock po ay isang research dissemination forum. Ito po ay forum na nagpapakalat ng pananaliksik po ng ating mga education researchers that aims to promote the use of research results and evidence in decision-making, program designing and implementation, plan formulation, and adjustment for the basic education sector. So kami po pinagtitipon-tipon na namin for a few years now ang mga educator, mga mananaliksik, program implementer, saka tagagawa po ng polisiya, policy makers to discuss education issues at magbigay po ng mahalagang input para sa mga actions natin sa hinaharap. Yung forum rin po ay nagsisilbing venue para sa policy feedback mula sa ating minamahal na field implementers.
Yes, tama yan. So since 2018, nag-start na tayo. DepEd has been conducting research o'clock where 14 studies were presented in 5 sessions. So noong 2018 naman, we have 36 education topics or research studies kung saan meron tayong 6 sessions nung 2019, no? And last year hindi po tayo hindi tayo bumitaw talaga kahit na marami pong nangyayari sa ating country, no? So last year tayo ay nag-conduct ng 6 virtual sessions kung saan tayo ay nag-present ng 12 topics.
Ayan. Tapos bukod bali ngayong taon mula Agosto hanggang Oktubre 2021, lahat po ng topics at ating diskusyon ay iikot po sa ebidensya mula sa ating Basic Education Research Fund grantees. Ito po ay isang fund facility na nagbibigay po ng pondo sa sa ating mga guro para gumawa ng pananaliksik. Saka na rin ang ating mga different partner organizations ukol po sa kanilang experience sa pag-implement ng distance learning at saka mixed modalities. Ito po ay in support of the continuing implementation of the BELCP for school year 2021 and 2022. So noong unang episode po, pinag-usapan po namin kung paano natin susuportahan ang ating mga magulang sa distance education. Sa pangalawang episode naman, pinag-usapan naman din natin ang teaching strategies sa distance education. Tapos sa ating huling episode, nung unang araw ng Setyembre, pinag-usapan natin ang pag-assess ng learners sa distance education. Paano po ba natin nalalaman kung natututo at naintindihan po ba nila ang kanilang napag-aaralan? These topics focused on understanding our learners and exploring the pedagogical practices in distance education. So if you missed it, you can still watch it via the DepEd FB page. So meron pong playlist ang Research O'Clock po for the current season and the DepEd YouTube pages. May playlist din po doon.
Ayan, kung nung first to third episodes ng ating research forum, nag-focus ito doon sa pedagogical practices na in distance education. Ngayon naman, for the 4th till 6th episodes natin, it will be focusing on examining support for distance education. So in today's episode, we will talk about supporting learners in home-based learning setup. So through the presentations later, we will learn about the evidence about the types of support offered to learners to further engage them in home-based learning setup.
Ayan po. Before we start today's forum, so nagkaroon po tayo ng quick activity po para sa ating lahat. So kanina po, kung nandito po kayo bago mag-live po yung ating forum, pinalarawan namin po sa inyo sa isang salita ang inyong unang linggo ng klase. So para po dun sa mga pumasok, pwede pa rin po kayo sumagot at babasahin po namin yung responses nyo on air. Just go to menti.com at i-type lang po ang code 5346-5953. Or kung meron po kayo, kung nanonood po kayo sa laptop tapos libre pa po ang inyong cellphone, pwede nyo po i-scan yung QR code nyo. Buksan nyo lang po yung camera nyo at i-scan nyo yung QR code para mabuksan yung Mentimeter page.
Right. So, I believe meron ng mga sumagot, Michael, no? But of course, hintayin natin. Naniniwala tayo na marami talaga yung nanonood ngayon sa atin dito sa ating research o'clock. But of course, before we proceed dun sa ating talakayan, before we proceed to the presentations, we are honored to be welcomed by the Director of the Planning Service. So nandito ngayon ang ating Director ng Planning Service, Mr. Roger Masapol. Welcome po, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Anne and Michael, for introducing me. This is the 4th series of episode of the Research O'Clock that we started, focusing more on the implementation of BLCP or the distance learning mode last year. No, so we already finished the 3 episodes. Or yes, the number 1 is the exploring how to support the parents and guardians in the distance learning, because we all know when we started the implementation of distance learning, this support system, the parents and then the guardians became teachers in their home, respective homes, no. And then so we invited some experts and then present researches on this aspect. And then number 2, noong August 25, we conducted yung 2nd episode. We look at pedagogical practices so that we can share, we can scale up some best practice in practice and pedagogy in the learning delivery and innovation. And then previously, we also look at assessment, how our teachers assessing the learning progress of our learners despite the limitations imposed by pandemic. So it's different ways. So at this point, this series will focus on supporting learners in home-based learning setup. So yung mga bahay natin, alam ko yung iba sa inyo ay ganun din ang nangyari na na-convert into a learning space yung ating mga bahay. One portion of your home or your house ay naging learning space ng inyong mga anak, ng ating mga anak. And we will explore how these things happen in home and paano ito na-navigate ng mga teachers natin at ng ating mga estudyante at ng ating mga magulang. So we have invited several presenters based on their experience, paano nila ito nagawa ng paraan at naging maayos yung takbo ng learning ng mga bata. So I hope that we can matatahi-tahi natin yung ating episodes from episode 1 to this. Nakita ni Michael hanggang October 5 mayroon tayong mga planong mga episodes to complete the entire cycle of the implementation of basic education learning continuity plan under the distance learning mode. So we all know that last school year we ventured into we have no choice, we ventured into a distance learning mode, pure distance learning, and then we completed the school year several weeks ago. And now we have started the second school year under pandemic. So we are still in the distance delivery. So, but just to update you, the enrollment right now in the Department of Education, we are monitoring the enrollment. As of today, we have surpassed the number of enrollment last school year when it comes to formal education. So we have achieved 103% enrollment compared to previous year. And we are still accepting enrollees until September 30. So the secretary has extended the enrollment so that we give more time to learners and parents to enroll. Baka may mga difficulties. Ang major challenge tayo ngayon, but we are seeing an increase in enrollment yung sa alternative learning system. We are still at 33% compared to previous year. So we are our enrollment is still open for all until September 30. So magpalista na po tayo at nagsimula na po ang ating pag-aaral ng mga anak natin at magsuportahan po tayo from parents, community, DepEd, and other partners. So magandang umaga sa lahat at let's learn from this episode.
Ayan. Maraming salamat po, Director Roger. So para po sa ating virtual research o'clock, inibitahan po namin ang iilang DepEd personnel na binigyan po ng funds mula sa Basic Education Research Fund at nag-conduct po ng research tungkol sa topic natin ngayon. Nag-imbita rin kami ng organisasyon na naging partner na ng DepEd sa pag-ensure ng quality basic education sa larangan ng learner holistic development bago pa man magpandemya.
So even before, yun nga sabi ni Michael, even before the pandemic. Pero dahil nga hindi tayo papapigil, even this is a virtual platform, we still want to interact with our audience. So when raising your question, para po sa ating audience, sa mga viewers po natin, when raising your questions or sharing your insights, please be reminded on this protocol. So please ask only relevant and direct questions to our presenters and guests because we want to maximize din yung time nila and then yung expertise din na i-share sa atin. So please indicate to whom your question is directed to at the start of your comment and write down your questions at the comment section on this live stream. So meron tayong format dyan na nakalagay, format for the FB, of course, yung name of the participant, kung kanino po participant yung audience po natin, and then kung target, kung kanino pong RP, na gusto niyong sumagot ng inyong question, and then yung question po ninyo. So for our Padlet naman, meron din po tayo dyang if you want to remain anonymous, of course, in asking questions, you can post your question in our Padlet wall. So may Padlet wall po tayo. You have to click the link at the post. So makikita rin po ninyo dyan sa comment section, nakapin po dyan yung ating link for the Padlet wall. And you can also scan the QR code in the screen. So dyan po sa screen natin, may QR code dyan. You can scan it using your mobile phone. Yan. And then magda-direct na po yan sa ating Padlet wall.
Ayan. So, sa ganyang paraan po tayo makakapagbigay ng feedback. Pero bago po tayo mag-move on sa ating research forum proper, balikan po natin ang ating Mentimeter. So, nakita ko po mula nung pag-usapan ko po yung Mentimeter kanina na ang dami nyo pa pong sumagot. Kanina sobrang konti lang ng responses natin. Ngayon, ang dami ko na nababasa dito. So, let me read a few inputs from our Menti Activity Word Cloud. So, meron po most of you found the first week of classes exciting, of course. Hindi ko ba alam kung exciting pa rin ba para sa mga guro, pero definitely sa mga bata lalo na ngayon, miss na nila ang kanilang mga kaklase at mga guro. Syempre talagang abangan nila 'yan. Challenging, exhilarating, inspiring, awesome, excited and laborious. Meron pang qualifier. Syempre, we've been all working hard to ensure that education continues for our learners. Exhausting, talaga naman po, nakakapagod. Blessed, tired, hopeful, successful, happy to serve learners. Saka meron din po tayong mga nakakamiss ng face-to-face classes. Kami din po we hear you and we are working very hard on returning to that mode as soon as possible. Ayan po. So, thank you po for again sharing your experiences, and again po kaya pa rin po natin magbigay ng feedback. I-type lang po natin ang menti.com sa ating browser at enter natin yung code na 5346-5953, or iscan lang po natin ang ating QR code gamit ang ating phone dun po sa screen. So that will take you to the Menti page. Ayan. So that's our Menti feedback.
Thank you very much, Michael. No, alam mo, nag-struck sa akin yung word na hopeful, yung nag-share sa ating patanong, no, na word na hopeful. So dahil hopeful din kami, no, sa mga bagay na nangyayari po dito sa atin ngayon. Hindi na po namin patatagalin, no. I-represent na natin kung ano ba yung mga studies, mga insights na meron ng ating resource persons for today. So our first presenter, sa ating first presenter is Miss April Esther Yu Nakan. So April is the Senior Program Officer of Save the Children Philippines Urban Sponsorship Unit. So she is also the Program Officer for Early Childhood Care and Development. Si Miss April po, sa kaalaman ng lahat, siya po ay Master of Family Life and Child Development at ang kanyang Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Sa UP, Diliman, siya rin po ay Assistant Professor. So she taught aspiring teachers at the Harris Memorial College, Center for Early Childhood Care and Development, Kalayaan College, and Wesleyan University, Philippines. So si Miss April din po, she is an ECCD consultant of government and non-government organizations and was the team leader for the development of the Department of Education's current National Kindergarten Teachers Guide. Isa iba, si Miss April ay kilala din as Teacher April. So si Teacher April was the first program head of the Master of Education in Early Childhood Education program of Wesleyan University, Philippines. The founder of Homeroom Family and Child Center. So it's an early childhood development center in Quezon City. Si Teacher April, she also co-authored the first course module on the foundations of early childhood education of Rex Education. So without further ado, to share with us the Project Aral, or the Access for learning resources for alternative learning, adapting to learning needs during COVID-19 pandemic. Let us all welcome Ms. April Macan.
Good morning. My name is April Macan from Save the Children Philippines, and it is an honor to present to you our Project Aral, Adapting to Learning Needs During the COVID-19 Pandemic. Just a quick background. Save the Children is the world's leading independent organization for children. We work in over 120 countries to save children's lives, fight for their rights, and help fulfill their potential. Our vision is a world wherein every child attains the right to survival, protection, development, and participation. Our mission is to inspire breakthroughs in the way the world treats children and to achieve immediate and lasting change in their lives. Our Save the Children's global strategy, or our ambition for children in the year 2030, or what we call the global breakthroughs, include survive, which means no child dies from preventable causes before their 5th birthday, learn, that all children learn from quality basic education, and be protected. Violence against children is no longer tolerated. Our impact areas in Luzon are in Caloocan, Malabon, and Navotas, and we also have our General Santos and Cotabato program offices. Save the Children has been protecting children for 100 years in the world and 40 years in the Philippines. So this is the outline of my presentation for this morning. The pandemic caused massive disruption to children's lives, such as in education, well-being, and their access to basic needs and services like food, protection, and health care. As we all know, schools were abruptly closed in March 2020, and then distance learning modalities were put in place for the school year, which began in October 2020 and ended in July 2021. This year, face-to-face classes are not yet seen to resume, especially in the urban areas due to still rising cases of COVID-19. And the pandemic has put children who are already at a disadvantage in even more vulnerable situations. So the children who are most impacted by inequality and discrimination were found to be even more dragged into dire conditions. So Save the Children Philippines responded to these drastic changes and emerging needs of children through Project Aral, or Access to Resources for Alternative Learning. The objectives of the program are to provide children with quality learning experiences, guide parents and caregivers in providing these learning experiences, and influence the government to support effective alternative learning methods for children and their families. You can see here on the side our developed materials. We have our early literacy and math at home toolkit, our literacy boost, reading camp guide, and our parent education sessions, which we all use in the face-to-face setting. What we did was adapt these developed programs in the context of COVID-19. Project Aral has 3 phases. So phase 1, which happened in May to October last year, was to help families to transition to home-based learning. We had the early literacy and math, or ELM, at home. And these are for parents of 3 to 5-year-old children. We had 12 weeks of daily episodes. And then for 6 to 9-year-old children, we had reading camp at home. And these are 33 episodes in 11 weeks. And we also had Kwentuhan Kabataan, or the Children's Discourse, where children had a channel of discussing issues among themselves. And these are for 10 to 12-year-old children. So all of these were mainly in our videos, which were shown via social media and also television. And then in the rural areas, we had audio versions, which were accessed by the parents via radio or audio devices. And then for families who didn't have access to internet, we had automated calls and SMS alerts where we gave them parenting messages through calls and through text. And then for those who don't have access to the internet and don't have gadgets, we also had printed parent cards and posters. Phase 2, which is ongoing now, is aimed to support the implementation of the distance learning modality. And for this, we have the Mapagkalingang Tahanan, which is our COVID-adapted family education sessions. So we have 8 episodes of foundational topics for parents of all ages. Then we have age-specific episodes for 0 to 3-year-old children. We had 5 episodes and 27 episodes each for 3 to 5-year-old children, for 6 to 12-year-old children, and for 13 to 17-year-old children. And again, these were mostly shown in videos via social media and TV. And also we have audio via radio or audio devices. And we have the printed parent cards and posters as well. Okay, several studies on access to education since the COVID-19 pandemic show that few students have access to government online learning programs. And among those, only very few choose to use them. And there were also studies in low-income settings that show simulations to estimate learning losses at different education levels. Save the Children has a recent global study that highlights that 80% of the surveyed children reported that they were learning little or nothing at all since the COVID-19 outbreak. And only a few studies have focused on measuring learning outcomes remotely during the pandemic. So with the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbating the learning crisis and negatively impacting children, it is essential to monitor children's learning to identify who are struggling or are more likely to drop out of school, and if indeed distant learning programs are effective. So our research questions are, what are the changes in caregivers' well-being and behavior on supporting home learning and their knowledge, attitudes, and practices towards home-based learning? And how are these changes related to their children's learning outcomes, including literacy, numeracy, and social emotional skills through the different delivery channels and services? So this study summarizes findings from the baseline conducted in September 2020, and the end line will be this month. So for the methodology, we used HALDO. This is the Holistic Assessment of Learning and Development Outcomes. It's a measuring tool developed by Save the Children for situational analysis in conflict and crisis settings. So HALDO measured these 4 components: literacy, numeracy, executive functioning, and social emotional learning. Then we added a caregiver questionnaire, which includes questions on background characteristics, home learning environment, knowledge, attitudes, and practices on home-based learning, and caregiver well-being. So we had 169 pairs of children, 90 girls and 79 boys aged 3 to 5, 6 to 9, and 10 to 12, and their parents from Caloocan, Malabon, and Navotas. That's the urban respondents, with then children reported with disability. And we had 81 pairs of children, 45 girls and 36 boys, aged 3 to 5-year-old, and their parents from Alabel, Maitum, Arakan, and Magpet for our rural areas. The sample was calculated using stratified random sampling with 90% confidence level and 5% margin of error. The children were assessed utilizing video or phone calls to observe and report performance-based questions, while the parents and caregivers via video or phone call. So the key findings, the baseline research of Project Arrow showed 4 main findings, which focus on the status of the learning and development of children, as well as their parents and or caregivers. So the first finding was, a whole child approach to supporting children's learning and well-being in the pandemic context should be reiterated across all sectors, especially during the pandemic. There is a need for our interventions to be holistic, regardless of the sector. So prior to COVID, our programs focus on specific areas such as literacy and numeracy. And we realized that there is a need to rethink and to look at the holistic development of children. So in the study, social and emotional learning had the lowest score in all age groups in urban, and numeracy had the lowest score in rural. And so domains domain activities and key messages were strengthened in the COVID-adapted materials. So this scores could mean that SEL and numeracy interventions may already be low prior to the pandemic, or it could also mean that scores are low because of the pandemic. So to be able to support the development of children, particularly in social and emotional learning and numeracy, activities and messages were integrated and emphasized in the ARAL materials, such as in the feelings card, which you can see here on your screen. Also in the whole child or the holistic approach, hygiene practices of children were also measured. A number of children still do not practice hand washing, which is especially crucial during the pandemic, which is why health and nutrition messages such as the Hygiene 5 were incorporated in the materials, and standalone materials for information campaign were also developed. The tool also incorporated items from the Washington Group of Questions to gauge the difficulties experienced by children, such as difficulty in hearing or seeing. Over 20% of children reported experiencing some form of difficulty. While this is not a diagnosis, it could be a red flag for a disability, and is also a reminder for us to make programs inclusive for all children. To respond to the needs of children, our COVID-adapted interventions have integrated messages on how to modify activities and materials for children who may have some form of disability. Still in key finding 1, boys scored significantly lower in the particular subdomain of numeracy. In particular, they scored lower in the hard operations subdomain. The second finding states that because policies in schools or centers have changed, primarily the shift from center or school-based to distance or home-based learning, all learning experiences are now happening at home. Households and families have different levels and kinds of resources, as well as capacities to ensure that children have quality learning experiences. In particular for learning materials, while 83% in the urban areas and 85% in the rural areas reported to have books at home, only 56% in urban and 64% in rural reported to have read to their child in the past week. So books and print environment are crucial to ensure learning of children at home. As a response, especially to the lack of books at home, the learning kits provided were ensured to have at least one book and different kinds of materials that can support children's learning. The level of education of parents were also looked at. Less than 20% of parents finished elementary school, over 50% finished high school, and over 20% finished college. Studies find a correlation between the educational attainment of parents and the success of their children because parents are the primary caregivers. In particular, looking at the scores of children in their learning and development outcomes versus the educational attainment of their parents, we found that children whose fathers finished elementary level have averaged the scores of 54%, compared to the higher scores of children whose parents or fathers finished high school or college. There is a significant effect or difference of learning outcomes of children in relation to their parents or their father's educational attainment. There is also a need for parents and caregivers to have a balanced support that covers their well-being, positive parenting, as well as providing learning opportunities for children. In the past year, as we were all taken aback by the pandemic, we saw that support for parents was focused on teaching them how to teach their children. It was very focused on providing learning opportunities for the parents that we overlook their well-being and the difficulty they experienced. So in the study, we asked the perceived stress of parents and caregivers in a scale of 0 to 56, where the higher the number, the more the perceived stress. 55% of them was between the 22 to 28 stress level and 20% between the 29 to 35 stress level. 75% of parents had higher perceived stress. Research shows that stress of parents can be passed on to their children. Therefore, we may assume that children also experienced stress the past year. For meaningful interactions, 80% of parents reported that they have time for activities with their children. Over 70% of urban parents or caregivers took time to name, count, draw, play, sing, tell stories, and read or look at picture books in the past 3 days. Rural is higher with over 90%. For over 50% of parents reported that they don't bring their children outside because of the health protocols. In terms of positive or negative parenting, a number of parents still practice some form of physical or humiliating punishment, such as spanking, hitting, slapping, and yelling or screaming. Majority of parents reported that they practice positive parenting. On average, mothers still take on the caregiving role at home, while urban mothers and caregivers likely performed interactions equally. There is still a gap in the roles of parents at home. Similarly, in parenting practices, 82% were done by mothers and 18% were done by fathers. So the ARAL materials highlight positive parenting, which includes well-being for parents and how they can foster positive and meaningful interactions at home. Materials also incorporated gender-balanced or gender-neutral messages. As much as possible, there is representation of both mother and father, and the roles they play are not stereotypical. We want to challenge notions that only mothers cook or only fathers work, and etc. As much as possible, there is equal representation of the roles in all our materials. The fourth finding is applicable for remote data collection, such as the pilot of HALDO. So remote data collection is possible for parent and child outcomes, but we need to consider physical and human resources to implement this in a wider scale or for a bigger population. Educational institutions and the education sector must gather data so that we can have a real picture if our systems and interventions are effective, such as distance learning. Okay, so in the administration, only 1 hour to 1.5 hours for both parent and caregiver tool administration, and this was done via video and phone call. And we need a video-capable device, whether owned or borrowed, for the implementer and the respondent. So those are the key findings of our data gathering in both urban and rural impact areas using the HALDO tool. The end line will be this month, after which we will be able to compare data and evaluate which work and where we can attribute this to. So for the conclusion and recommendations, the changes brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic on early learning and the education sector and attached services for children greatly impact how each child develops and learns. It is imperative to recognize the unique characteristics of homes and activate a multi-sector approach to truly uphold the commitment no child is left behind. In the early learning and education agencies, we have to strengthen integrated socio-emotional learning messaging and the whole child approach in public early learning and education system during the pandemic. We have to revisit current teaching learning process, content, and systems to ensure that these support all aspects of the development of children. We have to adopting or investing in systematic support for parents and caregivers to increase their knowledge and capacities to better support children's learning at home. And there's a need to invest in measuring child outcomes to measure long-term effects of the benefits of our interventions and to see which children are at risk of being left behind and which groups of children need better support. So that's all. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the open forum later.
Ayan, maraming salamat, Miss April. So, si Miss April, our partner from Save the Children Philippines, nagpresent po siya tungkol sa Project Aral, isa po nilang program na tumutulong sa mga pamilya mag-transition po sa distance learning, sumusuporta sa implementation ng distance learning, at nagfa-facilitate po ng ligtas na pagbalik sa face-to-face pag nangyari na po yun. So nakita po natin sa presentation ni Miss April na in order to help our learners, it is important to know them po. So nakita nyo po na extensive po yung use of scoping studies, baseline and endline data po, yung data na kinokolekte po sa simula ng project at sa dulo tungkol dun po sa characteristics po ng children natin, how they learn, meron po ba silang mga exceptionalities or mga attributes po that may facilitate or hinder their learning. Tapos bukod pa doon, hindi lang po importante na malaman po natin kung ano po ba makakatulong sa ating mga anak. Importante rin po na we know our parents as well, kasi bilang sila po ang ating partners sa pag-administer po ng distance learning. So sila po kailangan din nating kilalanin so that we can meet them where they are. So itong these interventions po of knowing and then promoting the well-being of children and parents, ito po yung key to promoting a good distance learning experience po in the midst of this pandemic. So maraming salamat po, Miss April, for your for that insightful presentation. At we'll be looking forward po to the final results of the project. So, mag-move on naman po tayo sa ating next presentation. Our next presenter, isa po siyang teacher researcher mula sa Region 3, si Teacher Ana Gracia G. Catalan. Isa po siyang Teacher 3 or Guidance Counselor Designate sa Tarlac National High School, Senior High School, Schools Division of Tarlac Province, taga Tarlac po. So, her research interests include mental health, guidance and counseling, and teaching strategies under the distance learning modality. Ngayon po, pag-uusapan ni Teach Ana ang results ng kanyang research na may pamagat na Arts and Mindfulness Exercises Integration or AMEN approach in promoting positive mental health amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So, let's all welcome po Miss Teacher Ana Gracia G. Catalan. Yan po. Saka ang ating
Isang mapagpalang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Ana Gracia G. Catalan, guro ng Tarlac National High School, Senior High School mula sa dibisyon ng Tarlac Province, Region 3. Ikinagagalak ko po na ako ay maimbitahan upang maibahagi ang aking pag-aaral patungkol sa Arts and Mindfulness Exercises Integration or AMEN approach in promoting positive mental health amid COVID-19 pandemic. What were the reasons why I came up with this research? Our school's guidance office and some class advisors had received psychosocial issues and concerns even before the pandemic. I am a guidance teacher and a class advisor. There were some students who sent me messages about their condition, what they were experiencing, and how it affected them. At that moment, I thought I must do something. Then, as we didn't expect, pandemic came. So I wondered, if these scenarios happened before the pandemic, where students could talk to someone in school, whether it be a friend or a teacher regarding personal matters, what more during this pandemic, where a lot of things are prohibited and face-to-face classes are not yet allowed. According to Wedlake, studies into the mental health impact of the previous disease outbreak, such as SARS epidemic in 2003, showed a clear increase in mental disorders. O'Connor in his study stated that there was an increased social isolation, loneliness, anxiety, stress, and financial challenges that can harm individuals, especially the young people's mental health. That was the time I decided to think of a strategy that I could incorporate in class for me to be able to help my learners in protecting their mental health. Based on the previous studies, it implies that mental health must be given paramount consideration in amending and improving some approaches in the teaching and learning process this pandemic. Hence, an approach named Arts and Mindfulness Exercises Integration, or AMIN, was conceptualized to be included as a strategy to promote positive mental health among senior high school learners during the school year 2020-2021. The main objective of this research is to improve the psychosocial well-being of my learners. And here are my research questions. What is the state of mental health of the learners before and after incorporating Arts and Mindfulness Exercises Integration approach? Is there a significant improvement in the mental health of the learners after the intervention? What is the implication of the results of the intervention in classroom instruction and management? Paano ko nga ba isinagawa ang pag-aaral na ito? The research design utilized was mixed method design, which consisted of quantitative followed by qualitative. The quantitative part of this research was based on the results of the assessment of the state of mental health of all the participants before and after the integration of AMIN approach. After which, a qualitative phase through unstructured interview via Facebook Messenger, where I got their feedbacks regarding the intervention used. In this way, I could have a comprehensive analysis on the possible influence of AMIN approach to the learner's state of mental health. The research participants came from the 4 sections I handled, a total of 158 online synchronous learners under the Humanities and Social Sciences in grade 11. During the first quarter, from second week of October until first week of December, school year 2020-2021. The study employed RIF scale of psychological well-being in order to determine the state of mental health of the learners before and after introducing the AMIN approach. The RIF scale consisted of a series of statements reflecting 6 areas, and this tool was used in the pre-assessment and post-assessment of AMIN approach. Since the participants were all minors, the purpose and the detailed procedures of the research was explained to the parents through a letter of consent and assent that was sent in our Facebook closed group and group chats. The intervention that I conceptualized was incorporated in the subject Introduction to the Philosophy of the Human Person for online classes for 6 weeks. But before introducing the approach, pre-assessment was given using the RIF scale and post-assessment after the integration of the intervention using the same tool. Mindfulness exercises were practiced 3 to 5 minutes every meeting to ease and calm the minds of the learners before the lesson proper. The integration of arts, on the other hand, was assimilated through activities per week for 6 weeks. The theme for art integration was based on the components of RIF scale psychological well-being, and the arts did not only include painting or drawing alone, but also other branches of human expression such as literature, photography, music, and the like, to create works which express meanings. The task activities were sent and submitted through online platform in our Google Classroom. Here are some of the photos or examples of Amen outputs submitted by the participants. Then there's also this photo taken during our mindfulness exercises, and the rest were the art activity outputs. I made a compilation of the activities from week 1 to week 6. And these are just some of the Amen exercises that we did, just to give you a glimpse of Amen outputs. From the data gathered, these are the findings. The table shows the state of mental health of the learners before and after the intervention. By the way, there are 6 dimensions on the RIP scale, namely self-acceptance, purpose in life, personal growth, autonomy, positive relation to others, and environmental mastery. So when you say self-acceptance, this is the act of understanding one's abilities and limitations. And when you say purpose in life, this refers to how an individual gives life meaning. Personal growth is the process of developing oneself in order to achieve one's fullest potential. Autonomy, on the other hand, refers to the capacity of the individual to make their own choices. Positive relations with others refer to as satisfying, trusting relationships with other people. And environmental mastery is the degree to which a person feels in control of his or her life. The table shows a significant number of students who were experiencing a slightly negative to negative state where its numbers decreased after the intervention. Also, a notable increase in number of learners with positive state after the Amen intervention. From what you see on the graph, there's a significant increase in the mean scores of the learners in this dimension after the intervention. So after the intervention, some of the participants' feedback was that they began to acknowledge and accept their good and bad qualities or their strengths and weaknesses. May mga nagbigay sa akin ng mensahe na mas nauunawaan na daw nila ang kanilang sarili base sa mga activities na ginawa namin. At nakita nila na may mga kahinaan sila na dapat tanggapin at kalakasan na dapat ay linangin. So, this pandemic may be depressing for some, but through arts and mindfulness exercises, they began to reflect and slowly accept who they are and who they want to become someday. In purpose in life, as results show, there is also a significant increase in the mean scores after incorporating the approach. Some participants revealed that they have discovered something about themselves which they already enjoy doing, such as cooking, planting, cycling, and so on. Base sa kanilang feedback, sa kasalukuyan na nararanasan natin ang pandemya, mas nakilala nila kung ano nga ba ang mas mahalaga at ano nga ba ang dapat na gawin nila bilang isang kabataan. Nagkaroon sila ng realizations na hindi pala dapat baliwalain ang pag-aaral at kailangan nilang ituon ang prioridad dito. In a way, this intervention has helped the participants in dealing with the present situation. In personal growth, after the intervention, some participants disclosed that they were already eager to learn new skills. Some were already into painting, singing, dancing, baking, and so on. Gusto na nila matutuhan ang mga bagay na kapaki-pakinabang sa kasalukuyan, hindi lang upang malibang sila, kundi upang maging productive silang kabataan. In the subscale autonomy, They revealed that they were not afraid to voice out their opinions anymore, though they have to be cautious of their words and be sensitive enough to treat people with respect and empathy. May iba na nakapagsabi sa akin na kaya na daw nilang pamahalaan ang kanilang aksyon at may tiwala at kumpiyansa na sila sa kanilang desisyon. At dapat, sabi nila, harapin nila ang mga consequences ng kanilang pagkilos. With regards to positive relations with others, some disclosed that they have gained new set of acquaintances, that they were already getting along well with their classmates, and they have newly found friends whom they could share their life stories with. At dahil mas marami na silang oras sa bahay o sa kanilang tahanan, mas napalapit sila sa kanilang pamilya. Nagkaroon sila ng quality time or bonding time together at nagustuhan nila yung pagkakaroon ng oras sa bawat isa. So, the present situation brings them closer to important people in their lives. In environmental mastery, after incorporating the AIMIN approach, the participants have realized that COVID-19 pandemic has created a lifestyle new to them. And as some of the learners shared with me, they were already able to manage their time well. Mas naging responsable sila sa pagkilos at naitatakda na nila ang mga gawain ayon sa prioridad. At naiintindihan nila na sila lang ang may kakayahang kontrolin ang buhay nila. Mindfulness meditation and art activities in one way or another has comforted and directed them to be in control of their lives. These are some of the screenshots or feedbacks from the participants after incorporating the AIMIN approach at babasahin ko po sila. Para sa akin, ito pong art integration yung isa po sa mga remarkable activities sa klase nyo. Mas nakilala ko po kasi yung sarili ko sa mga reflections at note to self parts. Nagkaroon din po ako ng evaluation sa characteristics ko. That way po, na-assess ko kung saang aspect po ako nakukulangan at pwede pang i-improve. Since we are in a pandemic where lots of challenges are emerging right through our faces, I believe that the mindfulness techniques and the art activities that you shared with us really helped to at least keep me on track and somehow improves my state of mental health whenever I feel overwhelmed on our task. Pinapikit niyo po kami. That moment po, na-realize ko na kung ano yung pinapagawa nyo sa amin, which is sumakto po na kailangan talaga namin. Kasi sa pamamagitan po ng exercises na yon, para nyo pong sinabi sa amin na, pause muna, hinga ka muna, na talaga naman po na ipinagpapasalamat ko sa inyo. Sa ganitong paraan, para bang ni-remind ako sa mga bagay na meron pala akong angking galing, sa mga bagay na hilig ko at lagi kong ginagawa, kung paano ako nagiging masaya sa tuwing ginagawa ko ang mga ito, at kung paano nailalahad ko ang mga naisabihin ng puso at isipan ko tuwing ginagawa ko ang mga ito. Kaya para sa akin, nagkaroon ng magandang impact ang mga activities na yon. By the way po pala, ang mga ito ay ipinagpaalam ko po sa aking mga estudyante at sinabi ko po na gagamitin ko sa presentation ngayon at sila naman po ay pumayag. Tinakpan ko nga lang po ang kanilang pangalan at ang kanilang larawan para po sa kanilang protection at privacy. The results of AIMIN approach in classroom instruction and management imply that introducing short mindfulness practice during the lesson proper started helped them feel motivated to learn, thus showed a significant improvement in their emotional well-being. Art activities in classes showed an impact on the participants which made them easier to deal with their anxiety and other mental health issues and psychosocial concerns, and at the same time explore their imagination to innovate and become creative. This approach was able to build rapport with the students, calm their minds, and engage them into learning tasks easily. In conclusion, Some students were experiencing mental health issues or psychosocial concerns this pandemic while doing their distance learning. Hence, the incorporation of arts and mindfulness exercises integration approach as a strategy in online or synchronous classes was found to be helpful to the participants in maintaining or improving their state of mental health. This implies that Aim approach was able to maintain a classroom environment that is conducive to student learning with added benefits of the attainment of positive mental health. These are some of my recommendations. The schools could integrate Aim approach to various learning areas or include it to homeroom guidance program, which can serve as a breathing room for learners, like a weekly class kumustahan for them. Ang mga mag-aaral ay may limitasyon at napapagod din. Kaya bigyan sana natin sila ng espasyo kung saan sila ay makakahinga at maipapahayag ang kanilang saloobin. Katulad ng binasa kong mensahe kanina mula sa estudyante na na-overwhelm sila at the time sa sabay-sabay na learning task or gawaing pampaaralan. Kaya parang gusto naman nila na mag-pause muna, mag-rest muna. Gusto nila magkaroon ng parang isang klase o oras na kung saan ay kukumustahin naman sila at hindi kukulitin na ipasa na ang outputs nila. Next is to incorporate similar strategies to different distance learning modalities, such as in TV or radio-based instruction, Facebook, or YouTube, where a teacher can facilitate the activity in order to make the class an engaging place for learning. Schools could also create a school mental health program anchored on Oblan sa Kalusugan or OC sa DepEd, in which mental health is one of the aspects of health that needs to be addressed to further educate learners on the importance of overall wellness. The school-based mental health program could include activities such as the guidance counselor or guidance teacher advocates and class advisors can build a dependable virtual group chats where learners who are suffering or experiencing mental health issues will have an avenue for expressing their feelings or situations. They could also launch school-based programs similar to arts and mindfulness activities during online synchronous classes, such as dance, singing contests, art activities or art workshops, and the like for students to have other means to showcase their talents and have engagement with their friends and classmates during this pandemic. And the ones in charge in the school-based mental health could also include other activities that extends psychosocial support to learners in different learning modalities depending on the needs of the learners. So that's it. These are my recommendations. These are some of my references. Bilang isang guro, ako po ay naniniwala na hindi lamang intelektual na aspeto ang nililinang natin sa mga mag-aaral. Kasama din dito ang mapangalagaan at maprotektahan ang kaisipang pangkalusugan ng mga kabataan. I firmly believe that there's no health without mental health. Muli, ako po si Ana Gracia G. Catalan, guro ng Tarlac National High School, Senior High School mula sa dibisyon ng Tarlac Province, Region 3. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikinig.
Ayan, thank you very much, Teacher Ana. No? Michael, alam mo, second presenter pa lang natin, pero nakikita na natin yung pagkakatahi-tahi ng ating mga studies. No? They're very connected. So,
Truly.
Sabi nga natin, when we say support, it doesn't only mean providing material resources, di ba, for our learners. Pag sinabi natin support, it's more of a holistic yung approach natin. Hindi lang physical yung tinitingnan natin, hindi lang cognitive, hindi lang yung kung paano sila matututo. But of course, kasama dito yung iba't ibang aspeto. Kasi tinitingnan natin yung learners natin as holistic, no? Human development, no? Kasi sabi nga ni Teacher Ana kanina, yung psychosocial well-being, ito yung purpose ng kanyang study, to promote psychosocial well-being ng kanyang mga students. So I think it's very good that we have this kind of studies na nakikita natin na oo nga, no, kailangan din minsan hindi lang sa mga estudyante natin, but of course to our teachers, to our parents, to our colleagues sa education sector at sa iba pang sector, no, na it's okay to breathe, no, it's okay sometimes to pause at isipin natin din kung ano ba yung maganda para sa aking psychosocial well-being. Ayan, so marami pa po tayong insights na maririnig mamaya. Of course, open pa rin po ang ating Padlet wall, open din ang ating Facebook comments section. So please, kung meron po kayong insights, if you have any question or clarification sa ating pong presentations, huwag po tayong mahihiyang mag-type ng ating pong mga questions sa ating pong Padlet wall at sa Facebook comments section. Ayan. Sige, hindi na po natin patatagalin pa. Punta na po tayo sa ating third presentation. So our third presentation will be from a group of teachers. Kung kanina nakita natin na nag-solo ang ating mga studies, dapat ngayon, grupo po ito ng mga teachers from Lumban National High School sa SDO Batangas Province, Region 4A. So let us have Miss Maria Julieta B. Santonino, Mr. Elmer Del Mundo, and Miss Glenda Mendoza as they present their research entitled Counseling Session Online, a New Normal Guidance Program for Lumban National High School Learners.
Good morning to one and all. Greetings of peace and love from Lumban National High School, Balayan East District, Division of Batangas Province, Region 4A, Calabarzon. We are delighted to have been chosen to present our research counseling session online, a new normal guidance program for Lumban National High School learners. The emergence of global health crisis caught everyone by surprise. It brought panic and terror to many, which triggered distress and anxiety not just to adult generation, but also impacted the lives of the learners. This dilemma motivated us to venture on this study to help and guide our learners. On the onset of this study, we focus first our attention to our learners who have previous records in the guidance office for the school year 2019-2020. The 27 subjects of the study have records of student-to-student conflict, domestic conflict, and passivity to attend classes. And still, we just want to monitor their progress and have follow-ups. Kung ano na ang sitwasyon nila sa kasalukuyang panahon ng pandemya, lalo't higit ang kanilang perspektibo pagdating sa pag-aaral sa ilalim ng new normal. Realizing this predicament where learners stay at home, and the home being one of the sources of stressor for other learners. With this in our minds na ang mga bata ay nasa sa bahay lamang, mas na-aggravate ang stress sa kanilang buhay. The result of the learners' enrollment survey form is also alarming. The school did not achieve a 100% enrollment at first, and upon interviewing them, many of the learners show passivity in enrolling for the school year 2020-2021. Hindi dahil sa takot sila sa virus, but they are misinformed about how school would operate under the new normal. The public posts of learners in varied social media platforms are also an indication that learners are having a hard time coping with abrupt change. Surprisingly, ito palang 27 learners na ito na hindi kaagad nakapag-enroll ay ang 27 learners din na may mga related at reported concerns sa guidance office noong nakaraang 2019-2020. With all of this, we are determined to exhaust all the possibilities in order to be of help to our learners, aside from the very reality that the Department of Education mandates us to provide learners with guidance and counseling session as embodied in the Guidance and Counseling Act of 2004 and Republic Act 11036, or the Mental Health Law. This gives genesis to Project Counseline, our dream to assist, help, and guide learners, especially in their psychological and psychosocial aspects. We would like to reiterate lang po na we are not licensed guidance counselor. Kami po ay mga guro at magulang na nakakaunawa din sa pangangailangan ng mga bata na magkaroon ng karamay sa kanilang mga sentimiento. Kaya nga po itong counseline ay isang helpline lamang na kung saan ang bata ay nakakakita ng isang platform na maririnig sila. And most of the time, learners are comfortable of asking help with their class advisors dahil sila mismo ang itinuturing na pangalawang magulang. At ang pangangalaga sa mga bata ay nakaatang sa kanilang mga balikat. We only provide guidance for simple and minor cases like their studies, simple problems at home, even love life, and the like. And if we found out na based on our assessment na ang problems po na isinishare nila ay hindi nasakop ng aming kakayahan, we refer the case to the right authorities and seek for their personal and professional help. And of course, may consent ito mula sa bata o magulang na i-elevate ang case. So after we identify the problems, we try to understand and determine the contributing factors that affect the 27 learners to experience stressor with their studies in the new normal. Through the researchers made survey questionnaires, we able to know the factors that affect their studies. After that, after we have seen the factors, we think of ways on how we can help. We have focus group discussion, consultation, meeting, for us to really craft a suited intervention strategies to augment the divides. We have tested several strategies to address the gaps until we tried online counseling. Dahil sa ipinagbabawal ang face-to-face o personal na pakikipag-usap para na rin sa kaligtasan ng bawat isa, lalo na sa mga mag-aaral. Even if we are separated by the virus, we do not want our learners to feel that we have abandoned them. We still want them to feel our presence and the warmth of love and sincere care. It may sound too cliche, but that is really our covenant with them. Gusto nating iparamdam sa kanila through thick and thin ay kasama nila tayo at mahalaga sila sa atin. We made use of descriptive design in our study and the mixed method, the combination of qualitative and quantitative method of research. We use the records in the guidance office and the result of the learners enrollment survey form as our baseline data. Self-made survey questionnaire is our data collection tool. And in order for us to measure the result, we simply use the Likert scale. Again, the respondents of our research are the 27 learners who have records in the guidance office. Sila yung mga bata na nagpakita ng 3 kaso ng domestic conflict, 5 kaso ng student-to-student conflict, 12 habitual absenteeism, at 7 disinterest and passivity in their studies last 2019-2020. If these learners will not be guided properly, they may end up not finishing included in the counseling session depending on the gravity of the issue at hand. In all these proceedings, we highly ensure that the Data Privacy Act is well adhered and that confidentiality and sacredness of the conversation is highly observed and followed. We have identified in our study is that the common factors or stressors of learners are the following, but we want to note that these results are self-reported by the respondents. The feeling of being alone and left out is the common stressor of learners. Since their parents are working, nor their parents do not have the skills to help them with their studies, they thought that they are alone in the limbo of darkness and there is no one to hold on for help. And this weaken the morale of the learners. Mas nai-stress sila kapag nakikita nila yung mga classmates nila, nagpo-post sila ng mga pictures na nagsasagot ng modules with their parents. Next, most learners cannot learn independently. They need a backup or a strong support system to cope with the new normal. Maraming bata at magulang din ang nagsasabi na sa pinagdadaanan ng kanilang mga anak na mahirap talaga nang walang face-to-face interaction with the teachers. Kaya they are hoping na mawala na itong pandemya para maranasan ulit ng mga bata ang pagtigil sa paaralan ng 5 araw sa loob ng 1 linggo. Then, limiting their movement at home with less activity and contacting with friends and the world per se is causing stress among youngsters today. Sanay kasi ang mga kabataan to get along with their friends, makipagkwentuhan, at malayang nakakagalaw. Focusing to their studies is also causing stress among learners because aside from answering their modules, they are also being tasked other chores either at home or at fields. So since ang Lucban National High School po ay nasa upland area sa Balayan, Batangas, marami po sa aming mga mag-aaral ay katulong sa gawain sa bukid. At nababawasan po talaga ang oras nila sa pag-aaral. And when the time to submit their module comes, that's the time that cramming and pressure will come in. Deadlines are indeed causing so much stress to them. Nagging, fighting, and common scenarios at home or common scenarios at home. We cannot blame the parents much because they too are also stressed. Dahil sa halip na makakatulong sila sa kanilang mga anak sa pagsasagot ng module, ay kailangan nilang kumayod upang matustusan ang kanilang pang-araw-araw na pangangailangan. Kaya minsan, ang mga bata ay nag-iisip na sila ay tumigil na lamang sa kanilang pag-aaral. On the ways to help our learners, we have done the following. One-on-one dialogue via phone call, messenger, and other platform. Visiting learners at home with parents, consent, and safety health protocols being observed. Home visitation is also done in the barangay where it is at low risk or no case of COVID. Sending letter to parents or learners, send letters to teacher to ask for help is also done. And then the divine appointment. It is where the advisor and learner meet nang hindi sinasadya pero perfect ang timing para humingi ng tulong o payo ang bata mula sa guro. Referral or extreme cases. Ito yung nangyari sa domestic violence na kung saan ay inire-report siya sa right authority like DSWD. Again, we want to emphasize that the data here are all self-reported by the respondents. So after facilitating several strategies or interventions, we found out that the most functional and useful way for our learners is the one-on-one dialogue via phone calls, messenger, and other online platforms. And that is our counsel line. Again po, ito po ay helpline lamang na makakatulong para sa bata. It fits well because we are able to reach, talk to our learners without jeopardizing their health and safety. The giving of assistance is in real time and immediate response has been provided. The mere presence of that teacher to listen to them, understand them is already something for the learners. So what are the features of Counsel Line? It is for the enrolled learners of Lucban National High School and parents of the enrolled learners. So Project Counsel Line must orient and inform the learners about the program, verify the client's identity, avoid bias and prejudice, practice politeness, maging professional in dealing with the learner's concern, magkaroon ng isang calm and motivating environment, may naging pagpayag ang magulang o ang bata para sa pag-uusap, and then the confidentiality na ang napag-usapan ay sa pagitan lamang ng bata at ng guro at ng magulang. So sharing you are the sample conversation by the teacher and the learner. Permission from the learners and parents were asked para magamit ito sa presentation. Magme-message sila asking you if they can tell something. The dialogue is about the learner na gusto nang mag-stop sa pag-aaral niya kasi wala naman siyang makatulong, busy ang parents o hindi alam minsan ng parents kung paano makakatulong. And gladly upon offering help and support and sort of motivation, naging positive ang bata and willing to continue her study. Ganoon nga po ang mga guro. Unknowingly, we are not just touching the minds of learners, pero yung puso talaga nila ang naaapektuhan natin. Kaya let's continue to uplift their moral, mahalin at yakapin natin. As I made mention, any conversation na naganap under council line ay confidential and remain private. However, the advisor or teacher must keep the records and documents. When it comes to the conduct of council line, since most of the time nga po ay si class advisor ang pinagsasabihan ng bata, inaalam ng guro kung sino ang bata, ano ang concern, at kung ano ang tulong na nais ng bata to ensure that the intervention, advice, and action to be given and taken by the advisor ay tama at angkop sa kailangan ng bata. Sending consent letter is part of the program kung ang concern ng bata o magulang ay nais iakyat sa higher level. Once the learner opens up the problem, the teacher or advisor will assist the learners what must be done and help them to be committed sa desisyon o pagbabago na gagawin. Pipili ang bata kung anong pamamaraan ang accessible sa kanya, whether ito ay text message, phone call, messenger, or video conferencing. After this, ang lahat ng pag-uusap ay to be documented for future use. So for the violation, we abhor the following acts. Dishonesty, tulad ng hindi pagsasabi ng totoong nangyari o pagbibigay ng maling impormasyon sa school. Pangalawa, not following the established guidelines para sa pag-conduct ng counseling. And third, taking screenshots of the session. So, these are the cases we believe should be handled by higher authorities. So, domestic violence, sexual harassment, and other related cases, exploitation, involvement in crimes, and drug addiction. So, how does council line help the school and our learners? It becomes an avenue for the learners to seek help and support where they are being heard and accepted without any prejudice. Thus, mutual love and respect are established. And we can grasp the ideas based on the testimonies of the learners. Sabi nga po ng bata, nakakatulong ito para mabawasan ang stress sa pag-aaral. Nagkaroon ako ng saysay. Nalampasan ko at malalampasan natin ang lahat ng problema. Some of the cost benefits of the project, it motivates learners to remain optimistic despite the distance and remote education. Thus, confidence and self-esteem are developed like what the students stated, na marami palang nakapalibot sa akin para mag-motivate. Patuloy na gumagawa ng aksyon ang paaralan para kami ay matulungan. At mas napatunayan ko na mahal ako ng paaralan. After our implementation, we found out that learners are stressed, yet there is no enough support mechanism from the family. Not because the parents don't care about their children, but they are preoccupied of providing the needs of the family. And also, many of the parents do not have the capacity to help the learners with the module since they do not finish school themselves. Learners are not ready for the abrupt change in the educational landscape, and they have difficulty coping with this change. So through Project Council Line, they have found refuge and sanctuary. That is why, since learners need a strong support system from the school to draw strength, motivation, and guidance through psychosocial activities. Therefore, teachers should also be capacitated more to handle this extra task. One-on-one dialogue via phone call, messenger, and other online platforms is helpful in addressing the source of stressor of the learners. But thus, it recommended that the school must continue the practice of assisting learners with stress and depression through online kumustahan session. Among the guidance interventions that we have used with our learners, Council Line is found to be effective for stress debriefing. And in order to help more learners, Project Council Line must be institutionalized to help more Lucban National High School learners, especially the stressed ones. So Council Line is essential in mitigating the impact of stress. So it must be rolled out to other school and or other district. So Project Council Line has given a milestone in our schools guidance program, but it can still be improved. So when it comes to DepEd policy, we recommend that the Department of Education must provide an item for licensed guidance counselor regardless of the school size and population. Or if not, they must capacitate all teachers for guidance and counseling services since they are tasked to do this noble vocation to holistically develop learners. So these are the references used in the study. So our work as a teacher is not just teaching them academically, but our vocation is to touch their hearts and make them a little stronger. Thank you po. Sincerest thanks po to the PRD focal persons, to the entire regional office, Region 4 Icalabarzon, headed by our regional director, Dr. Julius Cesar Bingas, to the regional research team, to the school's division superintendent of Batangas Province, Dr. Marcel Everdome, to our division research focal person, Dr. Rodrigo Castillo, to the public schools district supervisor of Balayan East, Mr. Avelino B. Mortel. Thank you so much po.
Ayan. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Juliet. So, ayan po paalala lang po na pwede pa rin po tayo mag-post ng comments po sa ating Padlet wall or ng tanong po sa ating mga resource speakers. Saka po, of course, kung nanonood po kayo sa ating Facebook page, pwede na lang po kayo mag-comment directly on our live feed. So, before we move on, magbabasa lang po kami ng konting insights po from our viewers ngayon po na natanggap namin through your comments and the Padlet wall. So, let's see what our audience has to say. So, from our Padlet wall on the presentation of Teacher Anna of Region 3. Kudos po for this much needed intervention. Based on the results presented, generally positive ang impact ng Amen. Talaga po natuwa po ako rin sa presentation na yun, 'di ba? Parang napanood pa lang namin po yung mga dry run namin, talagang nakakabigat po pabigat po ng puso. Yung mga heartwarming po. Sorry.
Yes,
agree ako dyan, Mike.
Results ni Teacher Anna. Yes.
Agree ako dyan, Michael. No? Sabi ko nga yung findings, talagang nakatutok doon sa feedback ng mga nakatanggap ng intervention, and it's very heartwarming sa atin na makarinig na talagang nakatulong itong intervention na ito sa kanila. So nakakatuwa rin yun. And of course siguro take ko na yung opportunity, no, dun sa ano din ni Teacher Juliet dun sa ating last na presentation, yung counseling session. Sobrang sabi nga natin, Michael, lagi nating sinasabi na itong mga ganitong klaseng studies, it's important sa ating learners, sa ating parents, sa ating teachers, dahil nakikita natin na ang pagtingin natin sa edukasyon ay mas holistic, no? Mas buo yung pagtingin natin, hindi lang kung paano silang makakapag-aral, makakapagsagot sa modules, but paano nila ito magagawa na merong saya sa puso, no? Yung maayos yung kanilang psychosocial well-being. And para sa ating mga friends, sa ating counseling fields, no, sa guidance and counseling field friends natin, gusto nating sabihin, tama yung sinabi ni Ma'am Juliet, yung disclaimer niya kanina na they are not registered guidance counselors, so they don't actually do the actual counseling session, no. Ang mga teachers na ito, sabi ni Ma'am Juliet, ang mga teachers na ito ay kinakausap yung mga estudyante, at kapag nakita nila na talagang medyo seryoso yung problema na binabahagi ng mga estudyante, they refer to the right authority kung saan sila yung mag-handle ng mga case na ito. So wag tayong, baka may mga nag-iisip sa atin na do they do counseling session sa mga estudyante? The answer, Ma'am Juliet, is no, tama po. Dahil ito po ay registered guidance counselors at registered psychologists ang gumagawa ng mga counseling session. So thank you very much. Siguro pwede pa rin po nating Michael, na tingin pa tayo ng mga insights na share ng ating viewers. From Nico. I think si Nico ay estudyante kasi sabi niya gusto na po namin, gusto na nila mag face to face. Naiintindihan natin yun, no? Sabi niya medyo nakaka-stress daw mag-aral sa bahay, minsan maingay, minsan magulo dahil marami daw silang magkakapatid, so nawawala siya sa focus. So ito yung mga bagay na gusto nating ma-address nitong mga studies na share ng ating mga teachers and partners. Tama, Michael?
Oo, tama. And yun nga, sabi namin po, we see you, we hear you, we are listening, we are working hard to bring us back to face as soon as possible. That is what the department is doing. So meron pa po tayong ibang mga insights na nababasa po dito. Ito, kakapasok lang po tungkol po sa presentation ni Teach Juliet. Congratulations, Miss Julieta B. Santo Niño. Your study is very much applicable in the present days. Proud PSDS here. So isa pong district supervisor ay talagang proud po sa inyo. Si Miss Lolit Cruzada Garcia galing po sa FB.
Okay, siguro last insight to Micah before we proceed sa ating reactor, sa reaction time natin from John Paul Recto. Okay. Ang sabi po niya dito, many students lack smartphones and communicating with their teachers. Some parents loses their jobs due to economic crisis. They can't afford to provide such gadgets. So we acknowledge the challenges, no, na ito po yung reality na nangyayari sa atin in the midst of this pandemic. So John Paul, naririnig namin na nakita natin yung comment, yung insight na ito, and we recognize that kind of challenge na ating nararanasan at nararanasan talaga ng ating mga magulang, ng ating mga students.
Ayan. So, kitang-kita na po natin sa ating tatlong presentations yung namumuong team. So, on my part po, nakita ko po how important it is po that we see people, kita natin po sila at kilala po natin sila, na nakikita natin sila hindi lang bilang mag-aaral, bilang magulang o bilang guro, pero bilang tao, bilang kapwa. Importante po na ma-recognize po natin yan. Kasi hindi lang po sila, yun nga, nag-aaral, nagbabantay ng bata. Tao po sila with fully realized dreams and aspirations po na kailangan po nating tulungan, linangin, at i-realize po. Ayan. So, mag-move on po tayo sa ating reaction time. So ngayon naman po, makikinig naman po tayo sa loobin ng ating mga stakeholders sa basic education, at ang reactor po natin ngayon ay isa pong napaka-importanting tao. Siya po ang Assistant Regional Director ng Region 10, Northern Mindanao. Tubong Antique po siya at nag-serve po bilang former officer in charge, Assistant Regional Director ng Region 6, Western Visayas, before he assumed office po sa Northern Mindanao as ARD last October 2019. So, without further ado po, may we welcome Assistant Regional Director Victor De Gracia. Sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael, and to you, Ms. Ann. Good morning, everyone. Hello, DepEd family nationwide. Warmest greetings to all. My special greetings to our beloved, motherly, and inspiring Secretary, the Honorable Leonor Magtoles Briones, Sir Roger Masapul, the Director 4 of the Planning Service, with Emil and Yumi who contacted me, and the rest of the DepEd family on planning. Thank you for the invite to be a reactor to today's 4th session of Research O'Clock. I bring also the pleasant greetings of DepEd Region 10, or Northern Mindanao, headed by our dynamic Regional Director, Dr. Arturo B. Bayocot, CESO 3. Let me first commend the Planning Office for this program of nationwide reach to share the findings of good action researches to help our teachers in the field deal with similar problems in their classes, especially in this time of remote learning due to the pandemic situation. So keep up the good work. My congratulations to the presenters of their researches. First, to Ms. April Macan of Save the Children, Philippines, for Project Aral in sponsorship areas, a baseline study on the COVID-adapted interventions for children in Save the Children, Philippines. Second, Dr. Ana Gracia G. Catalan of Tarlac National High School for Arts and Mindfulness Exercises Integration, or AMEN, in promoting positive mental health amid COVID-19 pandemic. And third, lead proponent Maria Julieta B. Santo Niño and members Elmer Del Mundo and Glenda Mendoza of Lucban National High School, Batangas, for counseling session online, a new normal guidance program for learners. I like the interesting coined word, counseling. Well, the three researches are very timely and relevant. I am happy to know the baseline study of Save the Children because it involved not only the learners in the sponsorship areas, but also the parents or caregivers as well. Seldom do we see studies involving parents or adults at home who assist our learners. In this time of pandemic, where we have remote learning, the expanded role of adults in facilitating learning at home is crucial. Let me express, therefore, our deep gratitude to our parents and other adults at home whose labor of love and sacrifices enabled our learners to go on with their remote learning and finish the last school year. Maraming salamat po talaga sa inyo. In the study, 68% of the parents perceive stress at over 41%. So, mataas, no? The learners use the oral learning package composed of print, video, audio, and short message service through cell phones. This is understandable because it's the first time experience of parents to be involved in this learning endeavor. Natuto naman ang mga learners because results of the study showed that Project Aral interventions were able to address the emerging needs of children as well as adults at home. Probably, they will be more relaxed this school year. Kasi nadaanan ng experience, no? Probably our parents nationwide last year could have experienced similar stress, no? Kasi meron na tayong micro picture of what happened, no, to parents. So parang more or less ganun siguro ang sitwasyon nationwide as far as our parents are concerned. But they did their best in helping our learners. On my part, I have talked to parents in Antique where they said they preferred the printed modules over online instructions because the learners can learn at their own pace and they will not be stressed by the incomprehensible online discussion because of fluctuating internet signal. Talaga malaking problema po ang internet signal sa ating, lalo na sa rural areas. Kasi nagkakagulo po lang daw sila kasi hindi magkaintindihan. So lesson, sana i-improve na talaga ang internet services natin para hindi madiskaril ang ating mga online classes or discussions. Malaking bagay kasi itong factor na nag-i-stress sa ating parents and learners. Sa research ni Dr. Catalan, magandang tularan ng mga teachers ang kanyang ginawa na i-incorporate ang arts and mindfulness exercises sa lesson para ma-promote ang positive mental health at this time of the pandemic. In her excellently written work, no, my congratulations, she showed that Amen as a strategy could maintain and even improve the learners' positive mental health so that the class becomes a happy and engaging place for learning. It could be an important pause. So sinabi niya kanina, importante yun, no? I got it. It could be an important pause to reflect amidst the requirements in other subjects. So it's not just content delivery that is important, but incorporating techniques to make the learners at ease in learning. Sa research naman ni Ma'am Maria Julieta and Company, ipinakikita na pwede pa rin ang counseling sa oras ng pandemya. Nakikita talaga ang puso ni Teacher Maria Julieta, no, sa kanyang pag-share ng kanyang research. It is importante sa ating mga teacher, no? Puso. Hindi lang yung intellect, especially at this time of the pandemic. So pwedeng maging online ang counseling. At tinatawag nila itong counseling, no? Magandang term. And so maraming salamat for sharing the way to make counseling still functional at this time. Kahit hindi registered na yung mga guidance counselors talaga na sila na registered, no, but they are doing their best kasi every teacher is a guidance teacher in a sense, no. So she is showing the example of how to be one, especially at this time of the pandemic. So maraming salamat. So in sum, hindi lang talaga content delivery ang tutukan natin sa remote learning, kundi holistic, no? Equally important ay ang konsiderasyon ng psychosocial well-being ng ating mga learners. At hindi lang mga learners, kundi mga participating adults at home. So mabuhay ang ating mga researchers, mabuhay ang ating mga parents and other adults at home. Mabuhay ang ating mga minamahal na mga guro. Let's continue to be courageous, no? Have the courage to search for new things to help our learners. Sabi nga ng mga great leaders natin noon, from Plato to Nelson Mandela, the greatest victory in life is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Magkamali man tayo kasi first time tayo sa pandemic last year, but it's worth trying still. Kasi how we rise from our fall is what matters in life. So maraming salamat. Congratulations to everyone. Back to you, Michael.
Ayan, maraming salamat po, ARD De Gracia. So thank you po for your reaction po, at nakita rin po namin na talagang even po from above po nakikita natin na gumagana po talaga yung ating mga interventions, at magandang sign of support po ito mula sa inyo, ARD De Gracia. So let's go on, let's read some more responses po from our Facebook comments and Padlet bago po tayo mag-proceed sa ating open forum. So Anne, can we have that first response?
Yes, no, meron pa rin tayong mga active na nakikinig sa atin ngayon. So siguro maganda itong transition dun sa sinabi ni ARD kanina. No, sabi dito dun sa Padlet natin, more than academics and BELCP, I like that this episode highlighted SEL. So more than the contents of the BELCP. During these times, it's imperative that we also look into the well-being of our children. I hope DepEd really takes into consideration the need for psychosocial support. Ang ganda nun, no, na appreciate din nila na hindi lang, no, more than the academics nga, hindi lang ito yung concern natin. But of course, sabi nga ni ARD kanina, mas holistic, mas kabuuan ng mga mag-aaral natin, ng ating mga kaguruan, ang ating tinitake into consideration pag sinabi natin na distance learning.
Tamaan. So, yun nga po, talagang yung dati ng metaphor that humans are biological computers or computers made of flesh, hindi po totoo yun. Kasi kung ang computer, ilagay nyo anywhere in the world at i-on nyo, tatakbo rin yan the same way everywhere. Not so much humans po. Lahat po tayo, nagbabago po tayo ayon po sa ating environment, at dapat po i-take into consideration natin yung environment natin po when designing distance learning so that we can maximize po our mental, emotional well-being. So magbabasa pa po ako ng isa pa pong response. So eto po, from baby C, as humans, teachers can only do so much in terms of the mental health of our students and fellow teachers. I hope that we support each other and remain hopeful that this pandemic will end. Kami rin po. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga guro who took this difficult topic. Hindi po biro ang mga research topics nyo. Kudos, capital letters po. Mahuhusay po lahat ng mga presenters. So talagang saludong-saludo po kami saludong-saludo po kami sa aming mga researchers at sa lahat po ng mga teachers na nagbibigay support po in all aspects sa ating mga learners at magulang. talaga pong hanga kami sa inyo. No, Ann?
Yes, tama ka dyan, Michael. No, talagang sila yung frontline eh. Sila yung nandun sa talagang frontline natin na talaga nakikipag yung sabak talaga sila doon sa pandemya na ito at talagang ini-ensure ng ating mga kaguruan na ang ating mga mag-aaral ay natututo. No? Kasama na rin ka-partner natin dyan ang talagang mga magulang na sadyang alam mo yun, sadyang talagang ginagawa nila yung best nila kahit na mahirap yung mga task na naibibigay din natin sa kanila. So, thank you very much po. So now, I think before we proceed sa ating open forum, just a reminder that for us to accommodate your questions, please ask only relevant and direct questions to our presenters and indicate to whom your questions are directed to. So, write down your questions at the comment section of the live stream, sa ating FB page and also sa ating Padlet. So, nakapin po dyan sa comment section natin kung saan yung link ng ating Padlet. If you want to remain anonymous in asking questions, you can post your question in our Padlet wall. So, ayan po yun. Sabi nga natin, pwede nyo i-click dyan sa ating comment section ang link to the Padlet wall. Ayan. So, now, I think our presenters are ready to answer our questions. Tama ba, Michael?
Oo, tama. Pero bago 'yon. So, throughout the presentations po, nakakatanggap na po kami ng tanong. So, our presenters have also answered some of these questions on the wall. So, we will read our presenters' responses to these questions, and then we will ask our presenters to also answer yung iba on air. So let me read one. So galing po sa ating Padlet, address po to Teacher April of Save the Children. Ang tanong po is, did you come across children or families who have no access to gadgets that will enable them to participate in data collection? If yes, what was the accommodation for them? If no, were they excluded from the study? So may sagot po dito sa Padlet. Pero Miss April po, maybe you would like to share that response po for everyone.
Yes, thank you. I answered in the Padlet also. We did not exclude these children and families who did not have access to gadgets. What we did was the implementer went to visit them. This is for the administration of the tools that I mentioned earlier. And for the interventions, for the materials, as I said, aside from the video materials that we have, if they have no access to gadgets or the internet, we had printed materials as well. So the video materials have a counterpart that are printed, and we distributed this to the children and their families.
And thank you, thank you, Teacher April. So, ito, may isa pa pong tanong. Babasahin ko na lang po yung sagot ni Miss April dito. So, ang tanong is, will you publish the results of the research? Will it be available to the public? So, ang sabi nga ni Miss April, yes, we will publish the results on their website, savethechildren.org.ph. And may publications din po sila. So, sa website po nila, may nada-download po kayo yung full report po. At balak po nilang i-publish ito in November. So, do we have more questions?
Yes, we have a question for, I think this is for Ma'am Anna, Miss Anna. Yan. So, from BBC, good morning. Does this research plan to expand to include teachers as respondents of the AMEN research? Adding mindfulness during synchronous class will take away time from formal teaching. Is this a recommended schedule? What are other options to improve the methodologies? Would you like to answer that, Ms. Anne? Although you provided the answer in the Padlet.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually po, bago ko po sagutin po yun, pwede po mag-shoutout po muna. Bumati po muna sa lahat na nanonood sa FB Live, sa mga kasama ko po sa Schools Division of Tarlac Province, headed by our Superintendent Sir Pozon, sa aming dalawang ASTS, Sir Arman and Ma'am Selina, Sir, and then also to Sir Depano, Sir Linsao, to our research specialist, Ma'am Queenie, sa aking pong principal, si Sir Dion, at saka si Ma'am Dungka, and Assistant Principals Ma'am Hazel and Ma'am Aurora. At sa lahat po ng sangkaguruan ng probinsya ng Tarlac at sa eskwelahan ko po sa Tarlac National High School, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Okay po. Ayan. So, sasagutin ko na po ang question. Sasabi po una is, ito ba ay pwede rin ba sa mga guro, sa mga teachers? Or pwede rin ba maging respondents ang mga teachers? Actually po ay pwede rin. Pwede. Kung hindi po ako nagkakamali, ito po ay naisagawa na sa DepEd tayo naman, sa Tulong Alaga Yakap at Oras, sa mga tagapagtaguyod ng edukasyon o ng kagawaran ng edukasyon. So parang a few months ago. Although siguro magandang ibaba natin siya no, sa level po ng eskwelahan. Inaanyayahan ko po ang mga school heads kasi po ito po ay sakop ng CRA ng mga admin. So yung mga school heads po natin ay pwede pong gawin itong research para naman po sa amin. Dahil ang sakop po kasi namin ng mga teachers at classroom. So sa mga estudyante po, pwede po yan sa yung mga teachers. Now, doon na po sa question na adding mindfulness, sabi po, to the synchronous class will take away time from formal teaching. I think yung 3 to 5 minutes po. Hello po, naririnig po ba ako?
Yes po, ma'am.
I think yung 3 to 5 minutes naman po ng time, every meeting ay hindi naman po siya ganun katagal. Okay, so unless talagang 10 minutes o 15 minutes po siya, i-trim through to 3 to 5 minutes po. Ayan. Tapos doon naman po sa art activities, pwede pong once a week po siya na i-integrate po natin siya sa ating lesson. So, depende po kung ano po ang subject area ninyo. Since ako po ay, ang ginamit ko po ito sa Introduction to Philosophy of the Human Person. So, nai-align ko po siya sa aking pagtuturo. So, parang ang mga estudyante, although alam nilang may research ako, pero parang hindi nila alam na nag-research ako dahil naka-integrate sa aking lesson. Ayun po. Tapos, sabi po ninyo ay ano pa ang option to improve methodologies. Actually, depende po yan sa ano po ninyo, ma'am or sir, kung sino po yung nagtanong po, sa schedule po ninyo. So, pwede nyo pong i-modify, lalo na po depende po sa pangangailangan po ng inyong mga estudyante. Ayun po, maraming salamat. Sana po nasagot ko po ang inyong tanong.
And thank you ma'am sa sagot. Talagang na-emphasize po ni ma'am na it's a really flexible approach po, no. So talagang kailangan kilalanin po natin ang ating mga mag-aaral para malaman po natin kung paano natin sila tutulungan in the best way possible. So I have another question right here. So from our Padlet wall, from again Miss Baby C, to Teacher Juliet, and I quote, "Some of the respondents have serious profiles. Does the research framework include constant monitoring, and is there the possibility of referring them to concerned agencies?" Teacher Juliet?
Hello po. Sir Elmer po, one of the researchers.
Ayan po, si Sir Elmer. Sige po, go ahead, sir.
Okay. So, thank you very much for that question. So, to Ma'am BBC. Yes po. We have constant monitoring with our respondents since majority of, or there will be instances wherein the cases will need to be elevated to higher authorities that needs to have a counseling by the licensed counselor. So, of course, that is part of the research framework to have constant monitoring and to refer to higher authorities with proper training and educational background to handle such cases. Thank you very much. I hope I am able to answer the question.
And
thank you very much po. Yes, thank you very much po, Sir Elmer. No? Thank you for reiterating that. Siguro po ito, this is the last question for all our presenters. Counseling might be quite taxing nowadays, most especially for our guidance advocates. What words of encouragement or advice would you give to them? Yeah. Para po sa lahat po ng ating presenters, ano daw po yung advice nating maibibigay, no? Words of encouragement. I think, sino pong gusto mag-start? Miss April, do you want to respond to this question?
Okay. For me, not just for the guidance counselors, no, but for everyone, that we should remember that we're all in this together. We are all taken aback by the pandemic, but we all did our best last year and continuing up to this year. And I just want to say that I remain hopeful and Save the Children remains supportive of education program, no, for the Department of Education itself, that we are here to support your program, especially in this difficult time. So I would like to congratulate everyone. It's still not done. We have so much work to do, but we are holding on, hanging on, and yun nga, sama-sama tayong lahat para sa Batang Pilipinas.
Thank you very much po, Ma'am April. We're all in this together. Ayan. So, sige pa tawagin natin, Miss Anna, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes po, hello po. Siguro po ang masasabi ko po sa mga fellow parang guidance advocates and also sa mga guidance counselors, kayo po ay mga bayani. Ayan, mga bayani po tayo na talaga nga naman na parang nagbibigay po tayo ng oras para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Kaya isa kang bayani, kapit kang, at kailangan natin ng positive outlook sa buhay para nang sa ganon ay maipasa natin yung positivity sa mga estudyante. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Anna. Of course, sila Miss Juliet and Sir Elmer nandito.
Okay po. Good morning po ulit. So, lagi ko pong sinasabi na teachers are guidance counselors. We can give best advices also to our learners. So, just continue to touch the lives. Just continue to touch the hearts ng ating pong mga estudyante. And we can make it po. We can surpass everything po, lalo na po itong pandemic na ito. And one more thing po, let's continue to transform the lives of every young minds po. Thank you so much po.
Alright, thank you very much po, Ma'am Juliet. I think we're done with our questions. Michael?
Yes. So, maraming salamat po sa ating mga presenters for your wonderful answers, and maraming salamat po of course to our audience na siya nagtanong po at nagbigay ng insights. Lalo na po napansin po namin si Ma'am or Sir, hindi ko po nakikita yung Facebook live feed, so ayaw ko po kayo i-misgender, si Miss Ma'am Sir Baby C, na siya po nagbigay po ng maraming magandang tanong ngayong araw na ito. So, para po sa ating synthesis at saka sa closing po, narito po ang Assistant Chief ng ating Policy Research and Development Division, si Mr. Emil Jan Centillas. Pero bago ko po ibigay kayo kay Emil, paalala lang po. So sakali pong hindi po natin naabutan itong research o'clock na to, saka yung ibang episodes ng virtual research o'clock, wag po kayo mag-alala dahil kinumpile po namin lahat ng episodes sa isang playlist po. So meron po tayong playlist dun po sa DepEd Philippines Facebook page. Tapos meron din po tayo dun sa YouTube page. So maghintay lang po tayo ng sandali bago ma-update po yung playlist with this episode. So again, may I introduce for the synthesis and closing, Mr. Emil Jan C. Centillas. Emil.
Yan, maraming salamat Michael, and maraming salamat po sa ating mga presenters, si Miss April, si Teacher Anna, Teacher Juliet, and Teacher Elmer, and of course ating reactor ngayon si AR Divic from Region 10. Ayan, so maraming salamat din po sa mga kasama natin, mga ka-DepEd natin ngayong umaga na kanina natin kasama simula 9 AM kasama natin para sa another episode ng ating Research O'Clock ngayong linggo. And as usual, ang dami-dami ko pong natutunan. Marami po akong nalaman at mga interventions din na ginawa sa field, sa school level natin. And for that, maraming salamat po. And I hope that we are able to learn something from our presenters, and at the same time we learn from each other. Yung mga interventions din natin na ginagawa sa kanya-kanya nating school, excited din po kaming malaman yan for galing po sa inyo. So ngayon po, i-synthesize ko lang po yung ating naging discussion. And actually isang salita yung lumabas or naisip ko nung pinapakinggan lahat ng presentation, pati yung insight ni ARD Vic. And ang salitang ito ay care. Ayan, so ipapakita natin yung care sa ating slides. Yung care. So pag-aaruga at pag-unawa. And may ibig sabihin yung care na nakuha ko mula sa presentation ng ating mga teacher researchers natin. So una, letter C. Letter C is communicate. Pakikipag-usap at pakikinig. Mahalaga po iyon, yung pakikipag-usap at pakikinig. The value of listening is very important. And nakita natin iyon mula sa baseline study ng Save the Children, yung pakikinig nila sa ating mga pamilya, sa Amen, pakikinig muna bago yung intervention na mindfulness and arts. And then yung sa Counseline, kung saan may platform para makapag-usap yung mga learners sa ating mga teachers, sa mga ating teacher guidance advocates natin. So mahalaga po yun because when we listen, we are able to develop intervention, we are able to know how to assist them. And at the same time, nagustuhan ko po ito, si Michael po ang nagsabi nito, we are seeing them, not just as learners, but as human beings na may mga struggles ngayong pandemic. Ano po? And of course, pagkatapos makinig, pagkatapos makipag-usap, letter C, we proceed to letter A. We act and assess. Ayan. So nakita po natin dito yung mga interventions na ginawa ni Teacher Ana, ni Teacher Juliet at Teacher Elmer, and then yung sa Save the Children, sa kanya Miss Ana, Miss April, kung ano yung mga interventions na ginawa nila. And hindi lang dito nagtatapos. They're also assessing kung epektibo ba ito, at kung paano pa ito mas mapapa-improve para sa ating mga learners as well. At the same time, mahalaga din dito kasi nakita natin na iba't ibang struggles, iba't ibang sitwasyon ang pinagdadaanan ng ating mga learners. So meron silang, na-mention ni Teacher Elmer kanina, yung framework, yung research framework nila ay involves also paano yung pag-refer sa mga appropriate authorities or appropriate partners natin na may karampatang training para masalo yung pinagdadaanan ng ating mga learners. Once again, di ba, ito yung ating gustong mangyari, no learners left behind, but in reality, tawag doon, madaming pinagdadaanan ngayon. So we really want to provide support. Our schools are providing support to our learners so that they are able to catch the context that they are in or the situation that they are in. So mahalaga din po iyon, yung pag-action at pag-assess kung paano pa natin ma-improve or ma-refer ang ating mga learners kung sakali mang sa pag-monitor natin ay nakikita natin na kailangang i-refer. Ayan. So maraming salamat po for that ating mga kaguruan. And hindi lang po ito, dalawang school lang po ito, dalawang school lang po ito. I'm sure maraming school ang nagko-communicate at nag-act and assess sa ating sa ating context ngayon. And of course, after acting and assessing, we're reflecting. Ito sa tingin ko mahalaga ito, and naririnig ko ito kanina both sa ating mga teachers at sa ating mga estudyante. Gusto ko yung sinabi ni Teacher Ana kanina, isa sa mga reflection ng estudyante niya ay yung mas nakikilala nila ang sarili nila. And mahalaga po iyon, yung makilala yung sarili natin sa gitna ng pandemyang ito. Na kikita natin kung paano ba tayo, ano yung mga reaksyon natin, ano yung sitwasyon natin, and paano tayo makakapag-cope. And of course, the courage. And upon reflecting, may yung courage na humingi ng tulong. At may available platforms tayo to assist our learners. And so mahalaga po ang pag-reflect, and not just also our learners, but also our teachers, yung pag-reflect ng kanilang mga actions, ng mga interventions nila. Mahalaga din po 'yon kasi syempre may mga pinagdadaanan ng mga teachers natin, so dapat na-reflect din, na-apply yung ating yung mga ini-implement natin. So nakakatuwa din po na sabi nga ni Teacher Ana kanina na pwedeng ma-expand sa ating mga teachers yung arts and mindfulness, yung Amen na ginagawa. So maganda din po iyon, no? So that we take care of each other. And ito po yung pinakahuling punto, yung letter E, para makumpleto yung care. Empathize. Napakahalaga po nun ngayon. We need to learn from each other. We need to understand where we are coming from. Matuto tayo sa isa't isa. Alamin natin, intindihin natin kung saan tayo nanggagaling. Napakahalaga po nun ngayong panahon. And I think care, the word care captures our discussion this morning. And of course, hindi lang ito para sa ating mga learners, para ito sa mga parents, para sa mga teachers. Let's look out for each other. Let's be kind to each other. Let's understand where we are coming from. And napakagandang salita yung pag-aaruga at pag-unawa. Yung dalawang salita yun, pag-aaruga at pag-unawa, napakagandang salita. Kasi ito yung kailangan natin ngayon. We listen to each other. We care for each other. So I hope after this, you're able to also reflect on our interventions. Kasi alam ko may kanya-kanya sa classroom natin, no? Gusto nating maintindihan. Gusto nating makita bawat mag-aaral natin. We want to see them. Napaka-powerful po nung nakikita nyo sila beyond learning. Sabi nga, holistic development. Beyond as a student, you're looking at them, you're seeing them as a developing individual. Ayan. So maraming salamat po sa pakikinig and happy lunch po sa ating lahat. I'll turn you over to Michael. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga teacher researchers at sa ating mga interpreters. Michael and Anne, maraming salamat.
Ayan. Maraming salamat, Emil. So bukod pa doon, ito na halos nakalimutan natin all throughout, pero magsha-shoutout rin tayo at pagbibigay ng taus-pusong pasasalamat sa ating Filipino Sign Language interpreters, si Sir Billy, si Sir Noenil, si Miss Pau at si Miss Clarissa. So, without you po, hindi po natin magagawang as accessible as possible ang ating research o'clock. So, punta naman po tayo sa results po ng ating Mentimeter. So, kung natatandaan niyo po, itinanong po namin sa inyo kung ano po sa isang salita ang inyong experience with the first week of classes. So, can we bring out the Mentimeter screen, please?
Ayan, Michael, siguro while waiting for the screen to be shown sa ating live, no? Basahin natin. I think it's here. Alright. There you go. So, pinakamalaki dito yung exciting and challenging. Tama ba, Michael?
Oo, tama. Pati kami rin excited and challenged din by this first week, no? Sige pa. So, meron pa tayo yung mga nabasa ko kanina, pero let's look at some new ones. So, meron ako ditong happy. Meron ako ditong interesting. Merong nervous. Merong hopeful. So, merong new experience. O nga naman, talagang bago talaga siya sa ating lahat. Merong nakakasabik kung tama ang aking pagkabasa nito. Merong fulfilling. Merong pressure. O nga, talagang mafi-feel ko ring mafi-feel ko rin na bumibigat po yung puso ko dahil diyan. Ano pa ba ang iyong nakikita?
Actually, marami tayo. Ewan ko kung bakit talagang nagsistruck sa akin yung word na hopeful dito. Nakita ko yung hopeful, nakita ko yung, mas malaki, no? Meron ding blessed, merong inspiring. Nakakatuwa yung mga comments din ng ating mga listeners dito. May awesome, and then silver lining. I think it's a very good word, no? Nakita natin dito may silver lining. Bakit kaya gusto nating marinig pa? At kung gusto nating marinig kung bakit silver lining yung sinagot ng ating viewers dito. At dahil dyan, open pa po ang ating comment section, open pa po ang ating Padlet wall. Kung meron pa po kayong insight na gustong i-share, please do so because your feedback, your insights are very important to us. So, sabi nga natin, we value your thoughtful feedback on today's forum. Dahil dyan, meron po tayong feedback form na makikita po natin dyan sa comment section. May link po dyan. Please kindly accomplish the feedback form. The link is available in this post. Nakapin po yan dyan sa ating comment section. You can also scan the QR code for you to access the feedback form. Okay, so again, we would like to thank you for your valuable time, Michael, no? Insightful comments and questions. Very exciting yung ating presentation ngayon, yung ating mga insights and yung mga questions. Talagang napapaisip, kahit ako napapaisip din ako dun sa mga tanong na ibinigay ng ating viewers for today. So thank you for our research presenters. Thank you sa ating FSL interpreters. And of course, yung ating technical partner natin from the past PD.
Oo nga. So, ito po uli. So, sakaling na-miss nyo po the first time, so yung aking reminder kanina, wag po kayo mag-alala kung na-miss nyo ang mga previous episodes ng Virtual Research O'Clock kasi nandun na po lahat ng episodes sa isang playlist. So, pwede nyo po tingnan yung DepEd Philippines Facebook page, tapos hanapin po dun sa list ng video playlist yung Research O'Clock. Makikita rin po natin siya sa ating YouTube page. Ayan po. So talagang makikita natin, makukuha natin on demand po at paipapakita rin natin sa ating mga kapwa guro at magulang yung napanood po natin ngayon sa Research O'Clock. So yun nga, that said, sabik po kaming makita po kayo uli sa aming next session sa 29th September where we will discuss kung paano po natin susuportahan yung professional development and welfare po ng teachers. So how do we not only make our teachers grow as employees, as personnel po ng DepEd, pero as people, because yung po as we have shown all throughout this episode of Research O'Clock, it's all about making people seen and hearing listening to them as people. Yan po. So, salubungin po natin at paghandaan ng may positibong outlook ang klase ngayong school year 2021 and 2022. So, muli, ako po si Michael.
At ako po si Ann.
And this has been Research O'Clock. So, what time is it po ulit?
It's Research O'Clock. Thank you very much po.
Thank you very much. And sana masarap po ang ulam.
Maraming